A challenge by the people unlike anybody has ever seen before in Egypt, trying to dethrone, get rid of the leader of Hosni Mubarak after 30 years. Let's talk now about how Egyptian nationals are seeing this. Stateside, Mona Eltahaway is an award-winning Egyptian commentator based in New York. Mona has been writing about the Egyptian upheaval and has described this as, quote, the most exciting thing in her life. Why do you say that?
You know, I want to put it into very simple perspective for your viewers, Frederica. That we're talking about a 30-year rule by a dictator, Hosni Mubarak, that is being brought to its knees in 5 days by tens of thousands of Egyptians. And this happened just 2 or 3 weeks after the 23-year rule of Zain al-Abidin Ben Ali in Tunisia by his people. It took Tunisia 29 days, it's taking Egypt 5 days. We are getting rid of autocracy.
Well, except that the president is still president. President Mubarak is still president. He says he's got a new government, but are you trying to read between the lines here that he is preparing this government for his departure?
You know what they were chanting in Tahrir Square after he appointed Omar Suleiman as the vice president of Egypt? They were saying no to Mubarak, no to Suleiman, we want to get rid of the regime. This is not going down seriously with anybody in Egypt. Protesters have not been on the street in their tens of thousands so that Mubarak can just bring his friends into the regime. People want freedom and dignity from a dictatorship that has strangled Egypt for the past 30 years. And believe me when I tell you that every Arab who writes to me through Twitter and through other social media that you have been highlighting has been telling me, go Egypt, congratulations, because we want this freedom for the entire region. This is a historic moment. I urge you to use the word revolt and uprising and revolution and not chaos and not unrest. We're talking about a historic moment in the history of my people.
It really is quite astounding when you say that it's Tunisia. What took place in Tunisia, it took 29 days for the unrest to mean that the president would seek exile, and how that helped galvanize this passion, this sentiment here in Egypt. We're talking about a country of 80 million people, so how is it that something in such a tiny country of Tunisia could be powerful enough to ignite the fire in so many people in Egypt?
What Tunisia did was it made free, it liberated the Arab imagination. The Arab imagination and the ability to know that we can do it. Because when Egyptians saw Tunisians get rid of Ben Ali, they thought, wow, this is possible. Let me give you another comparison to put it into perspective. It took Ben Ali 26 days of uprising to call the armed forces onto the streets of the capital, Tunis. It took Hosni Mubarak 4 days to call the armed forces. Why? This is why I believe Hosni Mubarak is finished. He called his armed forces in 4 days. The people in Egypt are winning. The future is winning. And I urge the U.S. administration to take the side of the people of Egypt, because that is taking the side of the future. Let's look at the positive here. Yes, that the looting that has been happening in Egypt is looting by the police force of Hosni Mubarak. People have stopped them in the street. They've stopped the looters and they've found their ID cards, and they are the police and the thugs of the Hosni Mubarak regime. Egyptians are putting together neighborhood watches because they want to fix their country. Egyptians want to fix Egypt. They don't want to destroy Egypt. This is a positive moment. You can hear the excitement in my voice. This is the best time of my life, and I'm glad to be alive to see it.
So then when you see images that we saw earlier where there were artifacts in an antiquities museum that were damaged, when that place that holds I guess, vestiges and artifacts of Egyptian history that goes back thousands of years. When you see this kind of damage, we're showing the images right now, is it your feeling that Egyptians would not be carrying this out, that it would be, what would be the motivation of doing this?
No, they're obviously Egyptians, but my point about the looting is that they're Egyptians that belong to the regime of Hosni Mubarak. Let me tell you some background about the museum. The museum has been in a state of disarray. It is unconscionable what they've done with the historic antiquities in that museum.
So you're saying this is symbolic of the Mubarak regime?
Of course. Well, no, I'm not saying that they're destroying it because it represents the Mubarak regime. I'm saying these are thugs that operate under the control of the Mubarak regime. The Mubarak regime has never cared about the museum. If the Mubarak regime cared about the museum, it would take care of the priceless items there. They don't care about it. They cared about the pyramids because they took the money from tourism and put it into their own pockets. But while we're talking about the antiquities, please let me remind you, Egyptians love our country's antiquities, but the priority today must be Egyptian lives. Those thugs that are out there on the street for the Mubarak regime are being stopped by ordinary Egyptians who have put out neighborhood watches. My priority as an Egyptian is to make sure that Egyptian lives are being protected. We value the antiquities of our countries, but we want people to survive this revolution and lead Egypt forward. This is a positive time, and Egyptians will take care of their country.
Mona Eltahaway, thanks so much for your time and your passion and your experience that you're bringing to the table here. I appreciate it.
And
thank you for having me.
And just to pick up on something that Mona did say, we do know that there has been looting going on in Cairo.
Yeah.
We're not entirely sure it's the police. She was obviously very certain that it was. We don't know that for certain, but we do know from our reports, Fred Pleitgen on the outer suburbs of Cairo, saying that people have set up their own roadblocks because there is this concern, because the police are not out in force. There's a lawlessness now in parts of Cairo and other cities, but we don't know that for certain.
Lots of images, lots of information, and that's part of the tricky part about this entire equation is trying to discern and differentiate between the different kinds of information and images that we are getting.
Yeah, this is still unfolding, and there's going to be a lot of information coming in that we can't confirm. We're working to confirm. Eventually we'll know exactly what happened and how it all unfolded, but you're watching it with us as we know it.
That's right. We're going to take a short break for now. We'll be right back after this.